Good morning. It is just still morning, just barely. It's 11:30 or close to that on day 54 of our trip, and we have just arrived in Yellowstone National Park. This is a place we've been most of the last 5 or 6 years, and it's a park we really like. It's a huge park. It's kind of a strange place to be this year because we spent so much of our energy in California that it kind of feels like an afterthought to be here. We have a couple of hikes planned that we're excited about, and since we're arriving at the park so late in the day, we're going to knock out a couple of shorter miles, and then this afternoon, when it's starting to turn into evening time, we're going to do our longer hike for the day. So right now we are on the Two Ribbons Trail, which looks like boardwalk so far, and it's paralleling the Madison River. It's really pretty. It's really nice to be here. Well, we had plans to hike out to Signet Lakes tonight, but we were greeted at the trailhead by hordes of mosquitoes, just hundreds of them. And a couple was coming off of the trail with bug nets on, and they gave us a report that it was really bad. And then we proceeded to watch them walk away from their car and then turn around and run back toward their car to try to jump in it really fast before the mosquitoes caught up with them, just to give you a sign of how bad it was. So we nixed that plan and hiked up to the top of Washburn using a route we hadn't taken before. It is really, really pretty up here, although that's partially because there's some rain in the area, and so we need to probably hightail it down, except it's so pretty that we're taking a lot of time shooting photographs and videos. But the trail was pretty easy, so once we get moving, we should make good time. We saw a herd of bighorn sheep on our way up, including lots of babies. Maybe it's just a drizzle. Hey, it is day 55 of our trip. It's our second day in Yellowstone, and we are 2 for 2 on having to change our plans for hiking. So feels about right for this park, and hiking highlights how challenging it is to actually get everything done, because your plans are not necessarily what's going to happen. We had hoped to hike back up to Mount Washburn today on a longer, more difficult route, but we got to the trailhead and there was a sign that the trail was closed. I know it was closed last year, maybe even in 2020, but I thought it was because they were doing construction up there, like on the mountain. So I was surprised to see it closed today. I'm not sure if some of the harder parts of the trail have washed out, so it's maybe not ever going to open again or what. But we ended up coming over to the Old Faithful area, and we're working on about a 14-mile loop that goes really just out to nowhere. We saw a lake, it was okay, and now we're hiking through some hillsides And then we'll actually, in a few miles, we'll get to Old Faithful, and then we'll finish a few more miles to get to our car. Kind of feel like junk miles. They're really not the prettiest, but I don't know. We just entered a place that's prettier than where we've been, so I'm feeling a little bit more positive. We just hit 9 miles on our hike. We have seen evidence of people at one backcountry campsite, and we have seen one hiker. So 9 miles, one person. We are about half a mile away from the Old Faithful area, and we're not really sure we're ready for the zoo that it's going to be, but when we get there, I plan on showing you how ridiculous it is.
There's a bird.
Well, we survived Old Faithful. We got some chips and Gatorade and our backpacking permit for later this week. There were crowds, but really they weren't as bad as they've been in the past. So nothing too shabby. We did not stick around to watch that geyser explode, but we have seen a few other ones bubbling and gurgling along our hike. In fact, the last mile or so has been all along the middle geyser, upper geyser, and now we're in the Biscuit Geyser Basin area. Well, hello and welcome to day 56 of our trip. That means we are on the last day of our 8th week. It's been an awesome 8 weeks out on the road. This morning we woke up pretty early and went out to Hayden Valley for some wildlife viewing. We did not find any, but we did get some nice morning light and enjoyed the views. Then we drove directly to Signet Lakes. That was one of the trailheads that we had planned to hike earlier this week, and when we arrived it was just swarming with mosquitoes and we could not handle the idea of hiking in them, but today we decided we had a plan. So before we got to the trailhead, we had on pants, long sleeve shirts, our hats, our buck nets, and we were already covered with bug spray. We packed a very light backpack and we just took off, and we said we would just go as fast as we could to keep moving to try to outrun the mosquitoes for the hike. And it worked pretty well. The hike was 8 miles. It was really flat. The trail was actually really smooth and easy. It was not particularly scenic, but it also was not ugly. It was just kind of standard plain Yellowstone miles. I did not record anything because we were trying to outrun the bugs, The bug nets worked really well, and then eventually we got a morning breeze that actually worked really well at keeping the bugs away. Well, it is the morning of our 57th day on the road, the beginning of week 9, the very first day of week 9. And we are heading out for a backpack in Yellowstone. We've actually already hiked 5 miles of our hike today. We day hiked it so that we could pick up those miles without our packs. And now we are gonna hike back to the intersection where we were, and then head a bit further on to camp. So we have about 7 miles today with our packs. Then we'll set up camp, and then we will do another short 5 mile or so hike out to Trilobite Lake. So it's actually going to be a pretty big day, about 17 miles. Fairly flat. We'll have maybe 1,200 feet of elevation gain before camp, and the lake should have some good gain, maybe another 1,000 feet. So we'll be camping right below 8,000 feet tonight, and then tomorrow morning we are going to summit Mount Holmes, and then come back to camp, pack up, and head down to our car. So we're looking at 2 back-to-back 17-mile days. We hope that we are well rested. We hope that we are well fed. If not, we will take Advil and nap later. That's the plan. Time for a creek crossing. Well, this will cool us off on our way back to the car. What was that? Yeah. Well, we are at camp. It was about 7 miles to get here, 7.2 miles from the car, so not too bad with a pack. Pretty rolling, so unfortunately we have a little bit more uphill to do tomorrow on the way out than we thought. We are mostly alone, except there's like a ranger 100 yards away doing paces and figuring some stuff out. Maybe just a random hiker. Maybe he's a scientist. We tried to do the Trilobite Lake trail, and it was a disaster. It was a trail for about the first 3/4 of a mile, and then we had to go through a couple creeks, and from there it was just meadows of no trail anywhere and really rough terrain underneath our feet, just walking through knee-high grass with no path whatsoever. We could see some blazes pretty far apart. Like, I mean, at one point we had to use Kelly's, like, the longer lens setting on his camera to see the blaze that we thought was a blaze really far away. So we followed a few of them for a while, and then just decided it's not a trail. If there's no visible trail whatsoever, if you're relying on random blazes on trees that are burned down and trees that have fallen down, it's not a maintained trail. Definitely still a route, and it's probably really pretty up there. It just wasn't a trail we were going to take today. So we turned around, got some water, and now we have found this really delightful creek next to our campsite. We had been really hesitant to come out here because we thought it would be really buggy. Our campsite is wooded, and the mosquitoes were not so good up there. But there's a really open field here with a breeze, and so we actually don't have bad bugs now because of the wind. So we're enjoying the warm sun and the open views. We can see Mount Holmes, which we're climbing tomorrow, and We're gonna eat dinner out here and hang out here for a little bit, and then eventually head back up to the campsite and probably go to bed pretty early. Well, good afternoon. We are on the other side of Mount Holmes. It is day 58 of our trip, and we have successfully backpacked into Yellowstone's wilderness. It was not without its fair share of challenges, but it was also really nice. We woke up this morning around 5:30, broke camp, and we're on the trail before 6 in order to summit Mount Holmes. The hike was pretty nice. It was fairly flat for the first 3 or 4 miles, which was lovely, except that meant most of the climbing came right at the end. But on the hike out, we walked through forests and shelf, like a trail shelf, and then miles of meadow. And it was just very delightfully Yellowstone. The summit was cold and windy. We sat for a little bit and had some snacks, watched the marmots. We heard some pikas, saw some pikas on our way up. And then on the hike down, we noticed in the valley below us, this herd of elk was running, which, if you've ever seen in the wild, is really cool. They just like swarm so smoothly together. And we didn't really know what was happening, and then we saw the elk just beeline toward this pond, and they just ran in. Like, we have no idea what they were doing, but they just bolted for this pond and just ran in circles around the little lake, splashing and chasing each other. We weren't sure if they were like playing tag, or I made a joke that maybe they were like doing a wolf drill, so this is how you get away from a wolf, as you run for water. We have no idea, but eventually they ran out of the pond and up the hillside. And it was super cool to watch as we were coming down the trail. We made it back to our campsite just around 11 o'clock, finished packing up our gear, repacking our bags, ate a snack, and now we are close to the car. I'm really hoping that we are less than a mile away from the car. We are on mile 17 of 18 for the day, so it's been a long one. But a good one. We're looking forward to buying some sodas at the gas station. Good morning. It is day 60 of our trip, and we are wrapping up our stay in Gardner, Montana. We were just here for 2 nights, so it was a pretty short visit. But it was a good one. The internet at our hotel was super, super bad. It just is bad everywhere in town right now. We think maybe because of the flood, it's even worse than normal. But it kind of gave us an excuse just to rest and nap and walk around town and enjoy the scenery and edit photos. So we are walking over to the Roosevelt Arch this morning. We have a little bit of cooking and food prep to do before we head out. Then we're going to run up to Bozeman and sit at a Starbucks for a little bit and get some files to sync. And then make our way down to Grand Teton this evening. We are not in a rush, so we're just kind of moseying today. That's all I have to say.